Lord, we come to your house to worship you, to be reminded of your goodness, and to remember the things that last forever. We thank you for this opportunity to be reminded by you of the things that are most important in our lives. Amen.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New Church at Boulder Valley. We're going to settle into the service with a little prelude. It should be familiar to many of you, so if you want to sing along because you can't help it, go right ahead. Slow down, you move too fast. You've got to make the morning last, just kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy. Da-da-da-da-da-da, feeling groovy. Hello, lamppost, what you knowin'? I've come to watch your flowers growing. Ain't you got no rhymes for me? Do-do-do, feeling groovy. Ba-da-da-da-da-da, feeling groovy. I got no deeds to do, no promises to keep. I'm dappled and drowsy and ready to sleep. Let the morning time drop all its petals on me. Life, I love you, all is groovy. Ba-da-da-da-da-da, feeling groovy. Slow down, you move too fast. You got to make the morning last, just kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, 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 ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Slow down, you move too fast. All right, please stand as we sing our first hymn together on page 20, As We Gather. As we gather, may your spirit work within us. As we gather, may we glorify your name, knowing well that as our hearts begin to worship, we'll be blessed because we came. We'll be blessed because we came. As we gather, may your spirit work within us. As we gather, may we glorify your name, knowing well that as our hearts begin to worship, we'll be blessed because we came. We'll be blessed because we came. Our next song, there's a typo in the handout, so it's Moses Went to Sinai's Peak, which is on page 124.
Oh Lord, there is so much that we need to do in this life. There's so much that takes up our time, so many pleasures that you have given us. And it is not wrong that we should enjoy these things with which you have blessed us. But we pray that we will not forget the spiritual and deeper things that you teach, which lead us to heaven, and that as we come to worship you, we may be reminded of what heaven truly is and of the loves that make it. Amen. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. O Lord, forgive us our trespasses. Amen. Please sit down, and if the children would like to come forward for their talk, I have some pictures I want to show you. There you are, yes. Now, the story I'm going to read today, it seems incredible that it ever happened, but it did happen. You remember how good the Lord was to the children of Israel? Remember when they were slaves in Egypt and he led them out of Egypt? Kind of, right. And when Pharaoh and his army, the king, chased them with all his army, and they were in front of a river, do you know what the Lord did for them?
What?
When they were in front of a sea and they couldn't get away, what did he do for them?
What? I forget.
You remember? No? Somebody else remember? Yes? No, not this time. He made the sea separate. He sent a huge wind and the waves went up and they walked through on dry land. And Pharaoh thought, that's wonderful, we're going to chase them on dry land. So what happened? The water closed on them so they couldn't catch them. And then they went on and they had very little, and they got to a place where there was no water. And so they were mad at Moses because there was no water. So what did Moses do? Jehovah told him to hit a rock, and he hit the rock, and the water came out, and they were able to drink of the water. And then some people came and they fought against the children of Israel. Moses went up on the mountain and he lifted up his hands, and when his hands were up, the children of Israel won. If he put his hands down, then they lost. So he got very tired. And what happened was, people then, one on either side, they held up his arms so that his arms were up, and then the children of Israel won. And then they came to this great mountain, huge mountain, and it was called Mount Sinai. And Jehovah put a boundary. Can you see, like sticks were around? And he told them not to go on the mountain, and there was thunders and lightnings on the mountain. And the children of Israel were amazed. And Moses went up, and what did he go up to get? Do you remember?
Water.
No, he went up to get something.
The Ten Commandments.
Very good. He went up to get the 10 Commandments. And here's what happened that was really rather sad. He was there for such a long time that all these wonderful things the children of Israel, the Lord had done for them, they forgot it. They forgot about it. And the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain. That is, he wasn't coming down. And the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, "Rise, make us gods to go before us, for this Moses, that man who caused us to come up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And Aaron said to them, "Pull away the jewels, the ear jewels of gold, which are on the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them to me." And all the people pulled away the ear jewels of gold which were on their ears and brought them to Aaron, and he received the gold from their hands and fashioned it with a chisel, and he made out of it a calf of molded metal. He made a golden calf. You see that one? And they decided they wanted to worship the golden calf instead of the Lord. So, and they said, "These are your gods. This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Aaron saw it and built an altar in front of it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow there will be a feast to Jehovah." And they rose up in the morning the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Instead of worshiping the Lord, they decided to play, to dance around a golden calf. Did the golden calf talk to them? No, it couldn't, could it? Just been made. And Jehovah said to Moses, go down, for your people have corrupted themselves, whom you caused to come up out of the land of Egypt." And Moses looked back and went down from the mountain, and the 2 tables of the testimony were in his hand. And Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, and he said to Moses, "There is the cause of the noise of war in the camp." And Moses said, "It's not the noise of the cry in victory, and it's not the noise of the cry in defeat. The noise of a wretched cry I heard." That is not a nice cry at all. And it happened, as Moses came near the camp, that he saw the golden calf. Here he is, he has these 2 tables of stone in his hand, and he saw the golden calf, and he was so upset. Do you know what he did with the stones? He threw them on the ground, yes. Moses grew hot with anger, and he threw the tablets out of his hand and broke them beneath the mountain. And he took the calf which they had made, and he burned it in the fire, and ground it up till it was powder, and sprinkled it on the face of the water, and made the children of Israel to drink of it. Do you think that water tasted nice? No. Tasted horrible, right? It was burned gold inside of it. Why would they forget Moses? Can you imagine why they would forget him and build some funny little calf and say this is their God? Can you imagine why it happened? Tell you why it happened. Moses was up there for 40 days and 40 nights, and they kind of forgot him. They forgot about all the things he had done. And so they thought, oh, well, Moses isn't there. Who cares? We'll make something else. And so they did. Well, of course, that's not the end of the story, because afterwards, when they were punished, they were very sad. And then Moses said, we've got to build a tabernacle to worship the Lord. And then they took all their gold and their cloth, and they gave it, and they made this tabernacle. I don't know if you folks can see it because it's a little dark, but it's a beautiful tabernacle down on the ground, not up in the mountain. And what can you see sticking out of the tabernacle? A fire, yes. In the daytime it was cloud, and in the nighttime it was fire that stuck up. And you can see that all the people camped around the tabernacle. Now, what was the good thing about the tabernacle? It helped them not to forget the Lord, like they had done when Moses was up there. It helped them not to, because the tabernacle was right in the middle of where they were, and they camped all the way around it. You can see that, can't you? That they They had their tents, and they could see that beautiful fire at night, and they remembered the Lord. So that's true of us too. Sometimes we might go for a long time without thinking about the Lord, mightn't we? You're playing, you're having fun, and it's all lovely, and you forget what the Lord did for you. You could make a list of what the Lord does for you, right? He gave you your bodies, and He gave you your minds. He made you. When you have happiness in your heart, you're often happy, aren't you? Aren't you often happy? The Lord makes you happy. And there are all sorts of things He gives us. He gives us the ground that gets us all of our food. He gave us people to love.
He gave us flowers.
And He gave us flowers, yes. And sometimes we play around so much we forget Him. So that's why we come to church, isn't it? We come to church to remember the Lord. Just like the children of Israel had the tabernacle, we have a church. And when we go to bed, we say our prayers just to remember Him so that we won't do something like build a golden calf. Now, you'd never build a golden calf, would you? And you'd never worship it, would you? No. And one of the reasons that you won't is because you remember the Lord, because you say prayers to Him, and because you come to church and worship Him. So this is a story about people who should never forget the Lord, but they did. And that's why He gave them a church to remind them. Okay. So will you go back to your chairs?
Please stand as we sing our next song on page 190, Thy Word. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. When I feel afraid and I think I've lost my way, still you're there right beside me. Nothing will I fear as long as you are near. Please be near me to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I will not forget your love for me, and yet my heart forever is wandering. Jesus, be my guide and hold me to your side, and I will love you to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path, and a light unto my path. You're the light unto my path.
O Lord, freely we have received, freely we give. Please bow your heads for a blessing on the children. Grace be unto you and peace from him who is and who was and who is to come. Amen. Now the children can go out to their programs.
Please remain standing for our next song, which is Be Still on page 26. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Verily I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Though the ocean waters roar and mountains shake with swelling in the deep, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Though the mountains tumble down and fall into the midst of the sea, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. And flow into a river of peace. And flow into a river of peace. Flowing down from streams of bliss. Flowing down from streams of bliss. Verily I say to you, those who believe in me will never die. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God.
And Rachel will read our next lessons.
This reading is from the book of Exodus, chapter 32, verses 21 through 25. And Moses said to Aaron, "What did this people do to you that you have brought so great a sin upon them?" And Aaron said, "Do not let your anger grow hot, O my Lord. You know the people, that they are set on evil." And they said to me, "Make us gods to go before us. For this Moses, that man who caused us to come up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And I said to them, "Whoever has gold, pull it away." And they gave it to me, and I threw it into the fire, and this calf came out. And Moses saw that the people had become undisciplined, for Aaron had caused them to become so undisciplined that those rising up against them would annihilate them. And from secrets of heaven, paragraph 1618. While in the world, we ought to participate in external worship, for it is by external worship that internal things are aroused, and by means of external worship, external things are kept holy, so as to enable the internal ones to flow in. Also, we are endowed with knowledges by this means, and we are made ready to receive heavenly things. And we also have states of holiness conferred on us, though we are not conscious of this. These states of holiness are preserved by the Lord for our use in eternal life, for in the next life, all the states of our lives reappear.
Thank you, Rachel. It's another reading from Secrets of Heaven. Everyone has an internal and an external. The internal exists for heaven's purposes, and the external for the world's purposes. When the external is dominant, then worldly, bodily, and earthly interests reign. But when the internal is dominant, heavenly ones do. We have been created in such a way, however, that the external may be subordinate to the internal. Thus the world within us may be subordinate to heaven. For as has been stated, the external exists for the world's purposes and the internal for heaven's. When therefore the external is dominant, the internal is closed, because then we turn ourselves away from heaven and the Lord toward the world and self, and the place we turn to is where our heart is, consequently where our love is, and together with that love the whole of our life, since one's life consists in one's love. Amen. And blessed are those who hear the word of God and keep it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, 'neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs that voices never shared. And no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words lie of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon gods they made. And the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. And the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls, and whispered in the sounds of silence.
O Lord, open my mouth, and my lips shall show forth your praise. Very grateful for the music which so matches the topic today. So in that story it says, the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain. And the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, "Rise, make us gods to go before us. For this Moses, that man who caused us to come out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Imagine that you were worshiping in this beautiful church, and about 3 feet above your head, there was a canvas sheet stretched all the way around. Or imagine that you live in a lovely house, and there's this canvas sheet just a little bit above your heads, so that you can't see the beauty above you. You can still go on with your life, can't you? You can enjoy many things, and there would be less beauty in life. But strangely, that's really how we live for most of our lives spiritually. Good people live that way a lot of the time. The Lord told this story of the golden calf to illustrate the human condition and to show how we can run into a little danger in that condition. Try to picture that scene 3,000 years ago. Children of Israel had come across a desert land. They were camped on a pretty desert plain, and then there was this dramatic mountain range with Sinai as its peak. And there had been thundering and lightnings on the mountain, and they were terrified, very impressed, and they weren't allowed to go on the mountain. And then Moses went up there. And then they got on with their lives down here on the plain. The miracles were not repeated right then. They just lived on the plain. They came to feel that maybe Moses wasn't so great after all. Life here on the plain was what mattered. Let us make our own gods, they said. Now, the whole book of Exodus, which is telling about the trials of the children of Israel, has a spiritual sense. And it's talking about how we, normal people like us, are going to go to the middle heaven. The writings for the new church call them spiritual people as opposed to celestial or truly heavenly people. And these people are really good people. They're not bad, they're trying to do it, but they have certain challenges to overcome on their way. So we all hope that we're among those good people. When we leave this world, we'll have accepted the Lord's leadership and be ready for heaven. But he warns us that there are times when we might make golden calves to worship instead of worshiping him. And how do we do that? It seemed absolutely inconceivable after all that Jehovah had done for the children of Israel, all those miracles, the plagues, the water from the rock, beating the Amalekites, getting the quail and the manna to eat, the thunderings and lightnings on the mountains, all these things that they would forget. You see, they couldn't see the mountain. There was a cloud. They couldn't see Moses. All they had was the knowledge that he'd gone up to meet his God. Well, here we are on earth. Heaven isn't visible. The Lord is not constantly coming down and urging us to listen to him. And we have to concern ourselves with hundreds of little things, many of them ephemeral, a lot of them very delightful. We've got to have our jobs, we've got to keep our health, we've got to marry, raise a family, look after aging relatives, go on vacation, deal with difficult people at work, make friends, enjoy life with them. And all of it is, a lot of it is fun. And it's just life. The Lord is up there. And there's this canvas, as it were, above our heads. And often, if we think of him, he seems very far away. Now, it's not always that way in our lives. Many times, it isn't that way. If a couple gets married, they might feel in their deepest heart that the one thing they want to do is to be grateful to the Lord for this wonderful gift of love, and they'll devote all their efforts to loving each other tenderly and completely. When our children are born and we hold them in our arms, we want so much to make sure that they're not just happy for a little bit, but they're happy forever. We want to instill values that'll last much longer than our influence over them. When we begin life, we have certain dreams about the difference we're going to make in this world to ourselves, to other people. The children of Israel didn't always forget their God. So we don't always forget our deepest beliefs and our wishes. But the story of Exodus observes, in the spiritual sense, time and time again, how there is a cloud in our minds, like that canvas, as it were, where we don't see spiritual things easily, and we do see natural things very easily. And it's not our fault, it's just the way it is. Moses delayed to come down off the mountain. With us, this represents states when we don't think of dreams and ideals very much at all. Other things occupy our minds. And as the Israelites thought that Moses was off somewhere else, we can feel, though we don't say it, that deeper religion isn't terribly important on what matters in life. As for this man, this Moses, we don't know what has become of him. Moses represents our deepest ideals formed from our religion. Well, we know that this happens to us. The Lord knows that it happens to us. It's not necessarily bad. It simply comes about because we have still further to go on our journey. After all, when you're 20, you are never going to die. I mean, death is being 40 and having wrinkles. When you're 40, the spiritual world seems a long way away. We feel the strong need to concentrate on the here and now. No, it's not bad, it's just the way life is. And of course there is a danger that we may craft our own golden calves. So what did the children of Israel do with Aaron? They took the golden earrings out of their ears. Pretty external thing, you see. Now, gold represents the good that comes from the Word, and the golden earrings represent the lowest truths which teach that goodness, the truths of the literal sense of the word. People can make a God out of ideas that come from the Word, a false God. And here is the problem, that fake God allows them to express more selfish and worldly emotions than they should, sometimes even really bad emotions. Take some examples from history. For centuries, the Catholic Church taught that if a priest excommunicated somebody, he had no chance of going to heaven. Where did they get that idea from? Well, Jesus said to Peter, "I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven." And so they said, fine, Peter can unlock heaven to people or lock it up. Then they made it up and said, well, then all the ministers after Peter can do that. Now, faithful Catholics accepted those teachings because it was taught them. And they weren't necessarily following their selfish wishes. In fact, it only benefited the priests, not them. The only ones who were guilty of crafting a golden calf here were the people who invented this idea way back when. And we have no idea whether they repented of it in time to come. But it certainly was a golden calf. It had no life in it as an idea. Here's another even more horrible example. Pilate said to the Jews, "I am guiltless of the blood of this innocent man." And the crowd shouted out, "His blood be on us and on our children." For centuries, at Easter time, many Christians used this statement as an excuse to torment and torture Jews around Easter. His blood be on us and on our children. So these innocent children, 500, 1,000 years later, were punished because their parents crucified Jesus. Similar sort of things have been used to support racism. There's this thought that Ham went to Africa and therefore the Hamites were black and therefore they were inferior. In fact, the writings tell us Ham didn't exist. He was a fable. But the persecution of many races has been justified from teachings in the Word. And people, when they do that, they forget all the spiritual truths that the Lord taught about forgiveness and the equality of people and the kindness and mercy that He wants us to show to other people. Those are the spiritual truths. When we create a false god, we tend to forget those things. How could people do that? Well, if the spiritual canvas is over their heads, they don't see those truths about love and kindness and forgiveness that Jesus taught so clearly. Or when they think that the priests can control heaven, they don't think of Jesus saying, "All power is given to me in heaven and on earth." As I said, we don't know the spiritual state of the people who created these false ideas. We only know the harm that teachings like this, drawn from the literal sense of the word, has done over the centuries. So how about us? What might be our golden calves? First of all, we admit that we spend a lot of our time with that canvas above our heads, just going about our lives, trying to do what is right, at times quite forgetful of the deep vision of human life that the Lord has given us. Let's accept that this is not an evil thing. It's part of the obscurity of life on earth, not a sin. We can't see heaven. We don't see the Lord every day. So there are times when our spiritual Moses, our deepest ideals, delayed to come down off the mountain of our love. And we're subject to selfish wishes. So a couple gets married and they love each other very much. They want to seek true love. And then as the business of life takes over, things are sort of normal. They're coping. Well, in some ways, they're really working on their marriage. They're trying to be good friends. They're trying to do the right thing and so on. But when they have disagreements, might they begin to pick on some teaching to make the other person in the wrong and use it to win? Might they use things like passive aggression or hoarding up reminders of the times that the other people did something wrong in the name of religion, as it were, making them feel inferior so that they can get their own way? And these approaches are often justified by a confused morality. We do these things when we're upset and when we want to get our own way. How about the raising of our children? Here's one little example. You want your kids to do well. And they do. They do some lovely things. And it's great to want your kids to do well. And it's great to tell people how well they're doing. But sometimes it goes just a little further. Well, I need to teach my kids to do these things that are well. Therefore, when they do these things well, I will reward them. I'll boast about them in front of them. I maybe give them some money so that they will do it even better, so that I have something more to boast about. So the normal wanting the children to do something well slips into, I want to be able to boast about my kids. Different picture altogether. And it happens so easily. We see it too in the ways in which sometimes we can't see when somebody says that our child has done something wrong, that it could possibly be because it's our child and our children are not allowed to be criticized, and so on. Try to think of it the other way. If we're really wanting their spiritual welfare, we certainly praise them and we certainly encourage them. And we might talk about how well they're doing. But we will also encourage them to feel that it was the Lord who gave them these gifts, and that the Lord gave them these gifts to use for others and to make them happy. And suddenly Moses has come down off the mountain. We can use hundreds of examples in just normal daily life, the slight dropping of morals in business practices and so on. The point is that when the canvas is there, we go on living, but we might craft ways of life that pander to desires that aren't so good. But all is not lost. You see, the story didn't end with the golden calf. Moses came down off the mountain. That is, the Lord finds ways to bring our spiritual values back to our remembrance. And of course, he was really mad. He threw down the tablets, he took the golden calf, he burned it in the fire, he gave it to the children of Israel in the water and made them drink, and it tasted pretty foul, for sure. Well, there comes a time when we look at some of our values and realize that they really weren't good. And when we see that, they taste bad. How many times have loving couples looked back on the ways they interacted many years ago and realized how that wasn't very loving at all, and really wish that they hadn't? Well, a picture of what they did tastes bad, and so they do something else. But here's the great thing about the story, is that right after that, Moses was told to make them a tabernacle. This is a bit of a dark picture. Can you see the tabernacle with the camp around it? There's another one here that's a little smaller. And the tabernacle was put right in the middle of the camp, and all the tents around it. And in the daytime, there was a pillar of cloud over the Ark of the Testimony. In the nighttime, there was this burning fire. Now, they needed that, and Jehovah gave it to them. They needed to feel that their God was right with them all the time. But of course, that represents what we do as well. So, how do we ensure that the Lord is invited to come down? Well, let's just ask a simple question. Why are you here today? Why did you come? I mean, there's the mountains out there. There's lots of things you could do under that canvas, aren't there? But the simple fact is you came in pursuit of the dreams of your life. And the passage that Rachel read from, which says we ought to be in external worship. Why? Well, partly just to remind us to be good, but also because it says by external worship, internal feelings and thoughts are aroused. And also, although we don't realize it, by external worship, the angels are with us and they give us feelings of holiness, holy feelings which return in the world to come and in this life. We can know about those feelings when we think about how wonderful Christmas sometimes feels to us. Those feelings from our childhood come back and warm us up. So worship, of course, is the main reason. Worship and reading the Word is the main reason or a way in which we once again invite Moses to come down off the mountain. Well, we say, yeah, but sometimes we come to church and we don't think very much about it. In fact, we're a little angry about somebody at home, or we've said the prayer and haven't remembered that we've done it. Well, that's part of that canvas over our heads. We do live that way. But a lot of the time, we really try. See, what the Lord is telling us, and it's a very comforting telling, really, is that we do seem to live very surface lives. We don't seem to be Christians bursting with interior loves every second of the day. But we're trying. And at times, we just go a little too long without really thinking of Him, and we're in danger of creating a wrong value. And so He lifts us up once again. Moses comes down off the mountain. And the passages that talk about this in the writings for the new church says that He provides this for all people, not just for Christians, but for people of all religions. And you think, well, what about those who don't have a religion? Well, they do. They have values. And when they look for those ideals of their own, they're in contact with the Lord's word, whether they know it or not. And the heavens bless them. And it's with them. So He encourages in all of us those moments to stop. As the song, those sounds of silence, when we can just listen and hear once again the interior vision. And Moses comes down, and we build a church in our hearts down here on earth. Amen. And so, are there some people that you would like to think of in prayer today? Yes.
My whole family is going to be traveling out to Pennsylvania for the next week for graduations and things, and just safe travels because there's flying and driving and all kinds of different ways to
Okay.
get there. So
whole Lester family, right. Thank you. Yes.
Rachel's mom is having a couple of surgeries coming up this week.
Prayer for Rachel's mom. Her name again. Francis, yes, thank you. Friend Rich, whose dad passed away. Okay. Okay, thank you. And for Dallas, whose father passed away. Were you about to say that, Debbie? It was Dallas's father, right? Grandfather, okay. Dallas's grandfather. You don't know his name, do you? Well, neither do I. Okay. Yes, he's up there in Canada, isn't he?
British Columbia.
Yes. That's in Canada, isn't it? Me and geography don't go well together. Thank you. Anyone else? O Lord, be with us and hear our prayers. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. Amen. Would you stand for the closing of the word?
Please remain standing for our final song on page 67, Great is Thy Faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. The